That includes people of color. It includes women. And I do believe that it is very important that the rising tide lift all boats, not just some. During my time as Director of Development for the state, we focused on strengthening the Minority Business Enterprise Division. We focused on making sure that we had a multicultural tourism campaign. I think Renee Singleton is here today. And we contracted with Renee and her company to make sure that our advertisements about what was great about Ohio reflected what Ohio looks like. And we have provided in the department about, I think, $4.5 million in loans, Bob, to minority businesses, retaining about 1,500 to 1,700 jobs. We're not satisfied with that. We created a new entrepreneurship and small business division that focused on that, and I believe the same thing needs to be done on the federal level. And I can tell you that all those things I talked about today are important, but that doesn't mean that we also shouldn't have targeted programs to certain communities, particularly in urban areas, to make sure that we rebuild our urban core and the people working on those projects reflect those who live in that city, not just who work in that city. So I agree with you. Thank you, Bob. Okay.
On a rather similar theme, one of the things that a lot of people have expressed concern about as relates to the infrastructure spending that you talk about is how those jobs that are created impact women and how we ensure that women really share fully in the economic recovery as we move forward.
One of the first bills, as you know, that was signed by President Obama was the Lilly Ledbetter Act that talks about equal pay for equal work. In some ways, it is astonishing to me that we even have to talk about these days that, but we do. That piece of legislation was absolutely critical. Following up on what I just said about Bob, we have focused a great deal of attention also on supporting women-owned businesses. I am married to a woman who ran a women-owned business for 30 years. And if she still had it, I would have given you the number, 216-281-7620. But I still remember it, yeah. And Peggy was also a White House Small Business Commissioner with President Clinton. And I can tell you that making sure that we give everyone in America, regardless of gender, regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of color, regardless of religion, the opportunity to achieve the American dream, then we are not what America's all about and not what the founders envisioned. So, Wendy, I couldn't agree more. I can tell you that I have been committed my whole life to those issues and will continue to be, and believe that it really, in many ways, it is all about not just tolerating the diversity in America, it's embracing and in celebrating the diversity in America.
Lieutenant Governor, you touched on part of my question, but I loved when you said that this country should not have a goal of being a safety net country. We should expect much, much more. In that vein, all the research, and I know you know this, proves that 70% of brain development is done in the first 5 years of a child. Public policy is beginning to recognize that research, but it lags far, far behind what we can do. And if we want to have well-educated, productive citizens, we have to pay much more attention to the 0 to 5. Why do you think we lag so far behind in public policy when the research is so clear? And what can you do to help us pursue that?
First, I want to acknowledge that you run the second best nonprofit in Cleveland. My heart's still with the Center for Families and Children. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. Okay, somehow I will dig myself out of this hole, but I admit I'm not sure how. As you know, my wife's the president and CEO of the Diversity Center, which is the #1 human relations nonprofit. But that's not in the same category as human services. Okay. Okay, let's get back to the question. When I go off on tangents, I get in trouble. Okay. There are a number of business people here today, people like Randy Markey, Tim Mueller, and one of the words they use in their business is return on investment. And I have to tell you that, getting back to your question about spending, I think that every dollar that is spent by government should have a return on investment, meaning that for every one public dollar that is spent, there need to be private dollars or perhaps federal dollars that come back. That's called leverage. If you're not doing that, you should question as to whether or not you're using that money wisely. Early childhood education, according to the Federal Reserve Bank, has the single best return on investment than any public policy issue on earth. It's why I said that workforce development begins with a healthy pregnant mother and a nurtured child. Because I can tell you, you can have the best schools in the nation. You can have the best curriculum in the nation. You can have the most beautiful schools in the nation and the best well-trained teachers in the nation. But if you enter that kindergarten door, literally years behind kids who at the ages of 2 and 3 have been exposed not to daycare but to early childhood education, you may never catch up, because 70–85% of a child's brain develops before he or she walks in the kindergarten door. Now, I also want to take your question and use it as an opportunity to answer another question that you did not ask. And that's what happens in politics, you know. And let me explain why. On May 4th, there won't just be a primary for the U.S. Senate. There will be an election on a program that is arguably one of the best jobs programs in the history of the nation, called the Third Frontier in Ohio. Now, I don't like the name because no one understands it. I think we should put it in the closet with cap and trade closure and filibuster. But the bottom line is the Third Frontier program is a program that has capitalized and created about 500 new companies. It's created more than 40,000 jobs. And what it is, it's been able to be a catalyst for starting up medical device companies, medical imaging companies. They're saving people's lives. It's a phenomenal program. And I raise it to you because for every one public dollar that is spent in the Ohio Third Frontier program, we get back $10. $10 in private equity investment, venture capital, and federal research dollars. It is a terrific investment and one that we must focus on. So whether it's at the beginning with early childhood education or perhaps later on in the continuum with the Third Frontier, we should always be focusing on getting a return on our investment, and there are no two better ones I can think of than the two we've just talked about.